I dated a goth nice girl. Warning, some audiences may find this content disturbing. View at your own discretion. Welcome to the House of Reddit. Today, we share some of the recent r/nice girl stories posted on Reddit. I dated a goth nice girl. I started dating this girl who wasn't like other girls. She would talk about mental health pretty often. Not to say mental health is like a bad convo topic or anything, but she'd never address her own problems, and when trying to help me with mine, I'm an addict, and bipolar, the answer was almost always spend more time with me, or maybe you should do something that benefits me, not directly, but she was monopolizing on my issues a lot. Another thing was using things like being goth as a personality trait, or saying she was whatever religion she wanted to be that day. Anything to fit her aesthetic, I suppose. It was pretty clear that she didn't really give a shit about the values she expressed most of the time, like when her roommate became abusive while drunk to her BF, she got mad at me when I expressed concern towards him, and more on that later. The relationship didn't start out bad, we lived quite a far drive apart from each other, so I'd spend the weekends, and she'd almost always get progressively sadder, and eventually madder that I had to leave to go back to my house. She practically told me that it was necessary for her mental health that I had to be there every weekend. And she wasn't happy that I got a new job further into the relationship where I was doing a lot of work, so I couldn't really talk to her all as often. She'd also sleep all day and not do very much, save for eating extremely unhealthily, which led to health problems and passing out when she started college, and would choose to stay up all night working on online classes. This stress made her more abusive towards me, which led me to start getting drunk again almost every night, occasionally with her. We got into a few fights and started to take breaks, which were godsends to me and my mental health, until she would break the break and call and text me every night cause she was having mental health issues, and making me promise to not break up with her and tell her I loved her and all this. On one especially bad night I got really drunk and wanted to go out to see a friend, and in so asking my parents led to a fight where I kicked myself out, and was living on some friend's couch for a week and a half, sleeping on the couch. She found out and was sympathetic to a point, but would still get mad at me for damaging her mental health by not talking to her through this. I eventually got the apartment I'm still living in now, and told her I wanted to break up, leading to her having a suicide attempt, and we haven't talked much since. Not sure if this fits too much into the nice girl thing, but she was manipulative and swore up and down that she was special or something. I'm pretty sure my ex was a nice girl. So when I was around 19, I liked to play Splatoons a lot. They had this messaging system in the game systems where you can add people and ask them if they want to join your Skype. I was invited to this Osamatsu group because my account name was Karamatsu. Osamatsu is an anime about 6 brothers who are identically. Since my name was one of them, I was invited to a group to message. Everything was fine till this one girl joined the group. We started to get close, then we started dating. They started becoming very clingy to me after that, to the point where it made me anxious to hang out with friends because they wanted my attention all the time. There were times where they would get upset just for hanging out without them. I got a dog one day and I had to fight them over the fact I was giving my new dog Daisy more attention than them, even though they do the same thing. Whenever I did something they make it seem like I'm some kind of monster, but if they did the same thing, it was automatically not their fault or not a big deal. Like for example, I'm not allowed to say stuff out of anger, but they can, kind of thing. It was really stupid and stressful. We constantly would fight. One day they just straight up broke up with me and told me they hated me. Every time they got bored or wanted to complain, they texted me up saying how much they loved me. It was a horrible abusive cycle for 3 years or so of my life. They even went so far to try to change who I was because they didn't want to try to accept me, but they straight up told me I wasn't allowed to do the same to them, as if they were flawless. My mind is unable to write this without thinking of so many things I could write about them, and it hurts so much. Just remembering all of the horrible things I went through just to please someone who never cared about me and saw themselves as just being nice and quote unquote. I'm just being honest, I can never tell a lie, even though they said one thing and did the other so many times. This whole thing messed me up so badly. Found out my BF was hit on by a nice girl. Nothing too dramatic here, but it still makes me mad thinking about it. So yeah, my BF and I are in a long-distance relationship. He's off in another country for schooling. But we've been together for over a year now. So anyways, we were just FaceTiming online and he was telling me about this. One time he was helping in coordinating an art event for this artsy creative club at his university, and they were having this meeting about it, This was pre-lockdown, when the virus wasn't so serious, and then he told me about this one girl that called him a jackass. He said it as a passing comment, but I told him to rewind and elaborate on it, cause I don't take kindly to people bashing him without any reason. But then he told me the story. At the meeting, it was just a first time getting to know you meeting among the school committee, which my BF is part of as coordinator, and the art club, so there was lots of food, drinks, and a generally light atmosphere. My BF was getting some punch when this one girl, let's call her Riley, walked up to him and struck up a conversation. My BF had a feeling it was more than friendly since he's been hit on a lot of times before, but didn't want to make assumptions, so he just went with the flow. From what I heard, she was all quiet and shy around him at first, asking questions on where he's from, his major and things like that, but then popped the question. So, do you have a girlfriend? Oh, yeah I do, sorry. She just nodded and left. He thought that was the end of it, but then a few minutes later he walked by her table with another coordinator, and overheard their convo. Uck. What a jackass. My BF says he has a girlfriend. Never mind about him, you can find someone better. I bet he just said that cause he's not into relationship. Yeah, he might just be some fuckboy. It was a group of them. But my BF didn't take offense to them. He then looked at the other coordinator to see if he's hearing it too, and he just had this WTF face. He was laughing as he told me this, but I remembered thinking of ways to stalk this bitch on Facebook and start the anonymous harassment messages. Nah, of course I'm kidding. But I still felt mad at this bitch. Don't call him a jackass after you were the one going after him. My nice girl story from hell. I indeed dated a thing that called itself a nice girl. The being overly affectionate at first, the indecision, and the flipping the switch on a dime type of emotions, the whole 9 yards. Now, I usually hate to say that I'm a good person, as I believe that remaining humble is an integral part of my personality, and I feel somewhat like I'm bragging somehow and such. However, it is an important part to understand this story. You see, I used to be absurdly loyal and still remain so to a certain extent. For some context about me, I won't go into too much detail, but the gist is that I've grown up in poverty and a hefty amount of suffering my entire life. I care deeply for those I have in my life and even those I don't know as well, and I try to be the best support I can for anyone that needs it, because I hate to see people go through sadness and depression, and I really can't help myself but to try and help out however I can. In terms of relationships and such, I'm the type to be romantic a lot of the time, due to being raised with those types of values, though don't worry, I'm not the nice guy or neckbeard type of romantic. I'm really just cheesy and affectionate, but not aggressive with it. But enough about me, you want to hear about a real nice girl, and I'm really just here for some self-therapy. Now, I have to say right off the bat, I'm afraid of revealing my identity, so I do apologize if some things are vague or switched around. I hope you understand. It was around middle school, 6th grade. I had little friends, sleep deprived, failing school, and I was considering the pros and cons of non-existence. Towards the middle of middle school, I met this girl in my math class. She really wasn't that bad looking at all, to be honest. However, we all know that an ugly personality can ruin a pretty face. But that wasn't all, of course. I'm not the type to judge someone based on their looks, just so long you can walk without feeling like you're dying even though it's been a couple of feet and not eating all day long, I'll be happy looks-wise. We really did get along as well. We started talking and we started having feelings for each other. Puppy love, really. Eventually she asked me out and I felt like a little kid on Christmas. I was so happy. But I would soon learn that happiness would soon wane. Very quickly. Soon she would get controlling, like a hawk. And not wanting to stop there, it eventually became like exactly what they say the main signs of emotional abuse are. She isolated me from what few friends I had, and she manipulated me into starting to hate my own parents, of whom previously I would give my life for. I do realize that I could have just ended it there, but I was blinded by the false promise of love, and I was young. I met a friend who happened to be a girl, in another class, but I decided that we'd just be friends, seeing as I was in a relationship and all, and I would never be unfaithful. But of course me being faithful to her was not enough. She told me to break it off as soon as I told her I made a new friend in class. And so I did. She had fully cut me off, except for 2 friends that I'd been talking to despite her controlling nature. Thanks to those people, by the way, you know who you are. But like all tragedies, it gets worse. She started to get handsy, in ways I was at first fine with, but as time went on, I eventually became undoubtedly uncomfortable with. But I had to go with it. In the rare occasion that I would stop her, she got furious. She would either just act like I didn't exist for the rest of the day, and then break up with me, or just break up with me. This happened a total of 4 times. I went back because my dumbass really did think I could make it work, and I knew she was having trouble at home, so I really wanted to help. I now know this to be a mistake. Eventually I started to develop what I've recently been diagnosed with, and that's generalized anxiety disorder. When I had a panic attack I would be physically ill. And that would be the low end. The high end would end up with me being shipped to a hospital, barely responsive and in unbearable amounts of pain, particularly in the chest. I guess you could say I was quite literally heartbroken. I know I shouldn't laugh, but this whole thing with hindsight, it's gotten kinda funny to me, despite the fact that I'm now suffering with legitimate trauma, professional help still pending. But, of course, I'm still not done. At this point, like every stupid teen, we do the naughty once. I eventually tell her I feel uncomfortable and I didn't want to do it again. But that would be too easy. So, she emotionally pressures me into doing it. Again, and again. Sometimes more than once a day. Side note, I won't say that she sexually assaulted me, because that would be dishonest, but what she did was still horrible regardless. I wanted out desperately at this point. She would consistently pressure me to do it, despite my objections. However, she did not take kindly to the growing amount of objections from me. She hit me, on more than one occasion, and we had multiple arguments. Because of my growing backbone and unwillingness to put up with her shit anymore, when she broke up with me, I didn't chase her. I couldn't afford to care anymore and I was finally free. She proceeds to date as many guys there are in a week, in about a week after we broke up. She would constantly talk about guys she would be dating at the time, in the most condescending tone, as if to try and get a reaction out of me. On top of that, she openly admits that she spread lies about me throughout the school, while I told nothing but the truth about what happened. Only in a tight-knit group of friends and trusted adults, and she destroyed gifts I gave to her, some of them being seriously sentimental stuff to me. I was indeed mad, but I had to keep a cool head, and be the better person. We cut off contact soon after and never talked to each other again. This was throughout the entirety of middle school. I never saw her again entering high school. Nowadays, I'm a junior in high school. I've mended most of the friendships I've lost over time, whom of which, I'm just having a good time with over Discord and such. I have a YouTube channel, with a decent amount of views for 18 subs. I have a passion and hobby, I'm not overtly suicidal, and most importantly of all, I'm in a much better relationship, with a nice girl, not an r/nice girl. If you enjoy this video, please be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. If you have any suggestions for future videos, please let us know in the comments below. Turn on the notifications to know when we post new videos. Thank you for coming to the House of Reddit.